Just one sugar, please. I don't, normally. But I'm whacked. The daughter was coltish. A thoroughbred. Long toes, ponytail. In charge of her own purse. Aggressively good-looking type that makes me feel like a bloke. Husband? One of those over the shoulder, somewhere down the hall doing something else, man. Kid? 9 or 10. Wearing more expensive shoes than I was. Looked at me the way cats do, you know? Like they'd read your diary or been through your knicker drawer or remembered you from school. Our dislike was immediate and mutual. Just as well for everyone I was minding the granny and not him. House. Magazine. Borrowed notions. Not like they'd made it up themselves. The latest dog's bollocks from the generation that discovered life, God bless them. All biscuit and taupe. Eggshell and bone. The money corner feng shui without drawing too much attention to itself. A Christmas tree so discreet it could have been June. I met Mrs. A for the first time that night. Watching TV in her make-do granny flat. Dinner on a tray on her lap. A call of depression cataracting her eyes. Shook hands and watery smiled. According to the daughter, she had got her voice back eventually since the incident, but was disinclined to talk. I brought my dinner and enjoined her. Getting to know you time. Glad to be away from the boy. Did you have a nice Christmas? She asked in that little Church of England kind of voice of hers. No. Pointless beating around the bush, seeing as we were going to spend a week together. Did you? No. In unison, we both turned to watch some semi-celebs battle it out against some other Boxing Day deadbeats on a game show. Both smiling. This is going to be grand, I thought to myself. No, this is going to be too grand, thank you very much. Post-dated cheque in my bag in the hall. Not used to being in someone else's house like that, so I went to bed early. After long toes showed me how to email them at the hotel and what time their midnight would be there and what time our midnight would be here and who's going to call who when and what tablets her mother has to take and when and to make her take them then. Doctor's mobile, friend of the family, ring any time just in case. All written out and any fucking Egypt can understand that handwriting. She put her hand on a highlighter pen. I said, it's all right. I got as far as 3rd level. A bit sharp. She got the message. On into the kitchen and ducking into the freezer like a pair of woodpeckers. Lots of pre-prepared food ending in vowels, and what didn't was wrapped in phyllo. Her mother wasn't eating well, and could I keep an eye on all that? The poor woman obviously had an aversion to coriander and crab cakes. Soon as the shops were up and running, I'd have this place singing of real mammy dinner. You know, good and smushy where you hardly know the cauliflower from the place. Do you mind, she said. Just one stipulation. Bit late, I thought, and you've your factor 30 packed and a taxi booked. Do you mind staying in on the night? She really felt bad about leaving her mum alone and wanted her to have company. She wasn't looking at me. The roast red pepper soups that got all jumbled up with a carrot and orange. A mess of potage. How could you relax on the beach knowing you'd left behind such a scene of disarray? They booked the holiday last spring, well before Mrs. A's was broken into. Couldn't change the tickets. Mrs. A didn't want to go in the first place, let alone now. Always knew her own mind. They'd offered, of course, but she was always so independent. Yeah, till you sold her house. I didn't say that because I didn't know at the time. I do not know why she was justifying herself to me. I couldn't give a damn she was paying through the snot. Couldn't wait to be rid of them. Listen, I could have been waving an axe behind her mother's head and it still wouldn't have stopped her to go ringing the New Year in the Caribbean. Oh, she pronounced it Caribbean. Oh, I had a pain in my sainted hole from the new millennium. I got acute about August. I didn't want to do anything for it. To have to do anything for it, to have to even think about it. There was nobody I wanted to spend it with. Now, that either says something about me or the other 6 billion people on this planet, but there was nobody that meant anything to me. Not fucking one. I just didn't want the whole thing ended up meaning something I never intended. Meaning anything. I had this sense of foreboding or something. Like I didn't trust myself. Like I could end up running over car bonnets with my top off. I was afraid of the license to go overboard. I knew I'd probably end up spending it with my ma. Neither of us mentioned the fact that it was the millennium. Just 2 slack jaws staring at revellers in foreign capitals swinging out of bell ropes. Got to the stage where I couldn't even look at the calendar. I opened the door to my mother's place. This was in August now. And I knew the minute I went into the flat. Not that there was a smell or an atmosphere, whatever, just... She was lying conked out on the couch. The remote in her right hand, the eclipse on the TV and the news, and her left hand dangling. Like that. I hadn't seen her in a good bit. She actually looked grand, other than the fact she was dead, like. Now when someone says to me, "You look like death," I take it as a compliment. Yeah. Her left hand dangling like a cheap chandelier. Rings twinkling. I didn't even check her breathing. Didn't need to. I knew she was dead as a dodo because she's always slept with her left fist clenched. Force of habit. A constant reminder of having picked Mr. Wrong. Forever afraid of him coming back and taking them rings of her. Though I doubt he paid for them in the first place. She used to call them her estate. That they'd be mine when she died. That's all she had to leave me other than the shape of her eyes and her walk. You can't put a price on sentimental value. Yeah. I buried her with them. Seemed wrong to take them off her. After her fighting all her life, every waking and sleeping hour just to keep them. Cleared out of her flat and she was gone. Not a scrap left. Tidying up after a picnic. That's why I thought it'd work for the millennium. Get a job out of loose end anyway, might as well clean up. The daughter had left a bottle of champagne on the kitchen table with a note that went straight into the bin. Mrs. A came down for her breakfast, and we shadowed each other around the room. So careful not to assume or presume or get in each other's way. She stood for a good while by the kitchen sink, staring out the window at the water feature in the Zen garden below. I'm glad they've gone. I turned off the kettle, grabbed the bottle and undid the foil in the wee wire cage like an old hand. Fizzy in the cups and good luck to him. I swear we were used to it. Out at the shops, half pissed by 11 a.m. Stocked up on eggs, rashers, sausages, a lot. Oh, between us we made the place comfy. Found some cushions and feathered a home. Do you have a drug problem? I stabbed a sausage. Nothing in comparison to yours, sunshine. Which reminds me it's time to take your... I've taken them already. By now we looked at each other, levelly. Well, I suppose I do have a problem. Insofar as I wanted to buy some Coke for New Year's, but I couldn't lay my hands on any. Scarcer than champagne. They're not saying that in the news. News at 6, news at 7:30, news at 9, news at 10, news at 1, 2, 3, 4. Not to mention News Night and Panorama. Oh, I wanted to talk the face off myself as the bells rang in the new year. Uh-oh! So, it's an inconvenience rather than a habit or a problem. Why do you ask? Wanting to know what I was doing there and that. Thought I must be desperate for the money. I told her about the man, the worry of some wildness that would take me over. This little job, if she didn't mind being called that, was a godsend. Seeing as I was, well, between things. And a boyfriend? Voice all croaky. Here, sip some water. No. The horizon is clear. Had one once for a good while, but he turned out to be, well, not who I thought he was. Then I lost faith in my own judgment. Happier on my Todd. Simpler. Safer. She tried to say something else, but it came out in ghost talk. Stop, don't push it. She shrugged and looked down, her eyes welling up with the effort. Here, have some more water. Do you need any tablets? There seems to be a great range. A wave of her hand and a proddy shut up. Then, holding her throat, her voice feeling like that. It killed her, she said. Slides of fear and panic projected in her eyes. I pulled my chair up next to hers. Put my hand on hers. Something really not my style. This guy once, I was walking to the bus stop. Where I lived then was suburbia, and this guy, it was winter, raining, really lash, only about 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon, but pitch black. I had to go into town or something, doesn't matter. Scuttling along, and this guy, I had the umbrella pulled down right over my shoulders, and this guy ducks in under the umbrella and went, "Wow!" So close, just right in my face like that. Oh, I got such a shock. That trinity of fear straight to the armpits and the pubes. But no scream. No noise whatsoever came out of my mouth. Just breath. Hot, shallow breath. You could see it. The guy was just a harmless head case. Harmless until he had the idea not to be, but that's all he was that day. So, it was really only a small fright by comparison to what must have happened to you, but what shook me was the response I thought I was having wasn't translating. I felt so stupid. He just skedaddled as soon as he'd had an effect. I puked over the wall next to the delicatessen and then just went and got the bus. I nearly missed it. It was hardly ever on time. To think of it, that was probably the 3:20 and not the 4:20. I asked for a... However much the tickets were from there then, and my voice came out no problem. Just a bit fracturedy the way it is after you vomit. And that was after only a small fright. Didn't even mention it to anyone but the who anyway. Because I felt so stupid not being able to rely on myself to scream in my own defence. That my own voice deserted me. Is that what happened to you? Partly, she whispered. Partly that. The phone went. They had landed and settled. It was roasting. Almost too hot, she said, trying to break the fall. And how was Mrs. A? Taking her tablets and sorry she hadn't come? Au contraire, I said. We're getting on like a house on fire. And lied. Our weather is unseasonably warm. She's outside stoking up the barbecue. Will I call her? All right. Grand job. I'll tell her you called. There are two things I need you to do for me. First, will you get down a box from the top of the wardrobe? A Chinese flowery thing about this size at the back. Hopped up in the chair, groping blindly. Is this it? Then the whole wardrobe does a lurch forward and back. The box drops and hits the drawer that at just that moment stuck out in a pout. Tiniest of tinkles. Oh no. No, don't worry. It's fine. I'm sorry. What's in it? A tea set. A little doll's tea set. Oh. Just one cup broken. And neatly enough at that. She got it for her daughter. Back then, whenever. And the young one had ignored it. Crying for something that needed batteries instead. I want you to have it. If you'd like it. Passing me the box. Our eyes welling up. plates covered in out-of-registered willows. Cups for the daintiest of sups. Thanks. Are you sure? It's gorgeous. A tear dropped with a plop. Don't ask me what's wrong. Not used to getting. I'm feeling sorry. Breaking it before it was even mine. There's thanks. I love it. Really, I do. I hugged her and I know I held on too long. Clear the throat. Wipe the eyes. Give us over that bit there and I'll glue it. All right, she said. Here and calm down. Secondly, I need to have a chat. Got us some tea while she poked at the fire. Sorry for getting so emotional, it's not like me. She smiled. I was banking on that. Sat in the cosy reach of the glow. This millennium thing, I don't think I can face it. Hype and hysteria, I know. No, I mean it. I'll just sit in and play Scrabble. There's no need to turn on the box. My mind's made up. Promise not to sing or shake hands. No, really. I don't want to go through with it. Could even take the battery out of the clock. A ceramic splinter was missing. I couldn't get the bits of cup to line up. Listen! I didn't want to be having that conversation. I glued as best I could. I focused desperately on the base as it set. A foreign laugh escaped me. Her eyebrows shot up. I showed her. Mir and Heine. Please. She was pleading. I want you to bear with me. Oh, dear Christ. It's all right. I don't want to hear what comes next. I can't. I won't. I don't want to. Mir and Heine. There's a capital C floating around in this floor somewhere. Our eyes met. Mrs. A, I said, I'm sorry, but I can't help you to go. Her husband had died 12 years ago. Nice and fast in his sleep. She was pragmatic about it. They'd had a pretty good marriage, still liked each other even. She missed him, but not in a debilitating way. His essence shrank imperceptibly and she was left with brambles. The black Labrador she'd found as a pup, shivering in the cold when someone decided, yes, this pup really is just for Christmas, and chucked it out of a fast-moving car. She never felt alone, because looking at brambles was like flicking through a photograph album. That dog embodied all her memories. She went everywhere with them. Slept in, on, or under the bed. A goodwill ambassador. Then last August it became apparent that Brambles had had it. Was that on the day of the eclipse, I asked? Maybe so. That's the thing about pets. When you take them on, you take responsibility for their death as well as their welfare. I nearly killed her to have Brambles put down. But after the dog fell down the stairs because of her wee arthritic hips, she knew she was only biding time. She spoke to the vet, who agreed. It could be dragged out, but it would be heartbreaking and cruel, and what's science for if we don't use it? She made the appointment and spent the meantime crying and pampering. Even took Brambles to a photographer to get their portrait done, with the dog curled up in her lap. She showed me the picture. She had it by her bed. The dog's roomy eyes acknowledging nothing but warmth. She felt desolate after. Big pain in her throat every time she caught sight of the dog collar rolled up in the bag. Now she was lonely. Now the house felt empty. And now, for the first time in her adult life, she felt mildly afraid. The daughter had told her to sell the house and move in. But seeing as she was company for neither man nor beast, she refused. She began to be invaded by a pronounced sense of uselessness and immense weariness. Rarely went out. It wasn't depression, too rational for that. Just empty. She felt embarrassed by being able-bodied and minded and not being able to motivate herself to do anything. It was 6 weeks after Brambles had died that the incident, the break-in, oh God, happened. Funny thing is, she hadn't been going to bed hardly at all, and this night she decided she should really get back into a routine. Amazingly, she dropped off like a light in seconds. I said, you don't really have to go into this if you don't want to. Not sure I was up to it myself. No, she said, matter-of-factly. I want you to know why I can't face another year. Why it makes absolute sense for me to do for myself what I did for Brambles. Oh, dear Christ. She was looking right at me, her pupils like pinpricks. And I don't want you interfering. I wouldn't have told you except that I like you. I wasn't expecting that. And you don't deserve a nasty surprise. Who's to say I won't go with you? She looked at me crossly. An attempt at gallows humour, sorry if I spoke out of turn. That incident left me cold. No other words describes it. Whatever was left of my essence, kernel, just life force, self was gouged out by that boy. Oh, let's have a drink. There's something to take the bare look of us. I don't feel a burden on anyone. The burden is all my own. She took a bottle of something clear from the press. Eau de vie, as luck would have it. And doll's cups. This will be the last drink I have. I don't want it to come up in the autopsy report. Wouldn't want them to think I'd been drinking. You've been doing your research, missus? Chink, chink, and down the hatch. Does this make me an accessory? Came out in fire breath. Let's have another drop of that. I hadn't banked on being able to talk to you, or you being interested. To be fair, I said, I hadn't quite banked in this either. The situation's kind of ridiculous. I mean, it's your own business, and I don't blame you, but I should really do something to try and stop you. Have you decided on when and how? That would be telling you, says she with a smirk. He carved Y2K on the inside of her thigh. She said carved, hacked it out of her elderly loose flesh with the blunted point of the knife, which was only blunted from hitting the wall millimeters from her face. Gagged her first, tied her to the bedpost, tore her nightie off even though she was in no position to offer up much resistance. Then he removed the gag, and as she put it so sweetly, kissed me after. And that was somehow the worst thing. As if sex is inherent in rape, but kissing should be innocent and not dragged into the mire of assault. His young lips on hers. What could go through his head? Her head? The daughter didn't say anything about that. Paying me $2,000, $2K. She just said you'd moved in with her following a break-in at your own house. My daughter had kept urging her to get counselling, to help her get over it. It was something that happened. Getting over it would be like denying what had gone on. She didn't feel like getting over it, thanks all the same. Found less and less to say. He had wrecked the place, looking for cash, took all her jewellery and what have you. Amazing that he said survived. He had kicked it down the hall in a fury. That's why I wanted you to have it. You strike me as a survivor. Show me then what he did to your leg. Bollocks! Sorry. God. The bollocks! Sorry. That's the fucking bollocks! Sorry. I'm sorry. Asking you to show me it's not as if I didn't believe you in the first place. I promise I won't stop you getting your way. Just don't give me any details. I mightn't be able to... Oh, shush. Cheers, my dear. Cheers, big ears. I kept asking if there was anything I could do. Treats and such, go places out to the countryside or down to the sea. I know. A barbecue. We could get a disposable. I remember all I need. Another look or taste won't change a thing. I'm sorry. She shrank away into her room more and more often after that. Meeting only for tea in the evenings. When I woke, it was 5 to 9 a.m. or p.m. Asleep in the chair by the fire. What? Is it morning? And how did that happen? Oh Christ. It's coming back to me now. The countdown was happening somewhere Pacific, so the tension was turned right up. No more talk of anything from Mrs. A. So much so that I began to think that maybe she was just a bit of a head case, a detail the daughter had neglected to mention. But no. Here she was. Dead in her bed. A pharmaceutical dustbin on January the 1st. A small note admitting responsibility for her own death. An apology to me for slipping sleeping tablets into my hot chocolate the night before. Doctors and police and calls to St. Lucia. It's alright, I'll mind the house till you get home. Got here days later, tanned and weary. Our holidays, the millennium and everything. How selfish. No thanks or a bonus, mind you. Mrs. A gave me this tea set. Do you mind if I go? Done nothing much since. You know yourself. Arsed around avoiding the cold. This morning then, well after it happened, I left my flat. I was desperate for something, a coffee, something to settle the nerves, anything. Walking for ages and then just pick a spot. Girl comes over with a menu. No, says I. Just a coffee, please. No food. She was Spanish, I think. Eyes like olives. No English, hardly. Listen, love. Coffee, please. No food. Yes, she says, pushing the menu at me. Listen, love. A coffee, please. No food. Yes, she says. The pair of us nearly in tears. Maybe she had someone tied up out the back. Yes, it's coffee. coffee. And she's right. It is coffee. 2 columns the length of your arm of different coffees. Try and focus. Oh Christ, I give up. Bring me tea. She put her hand on mine, nodding as she took the menu away. Minutes later, she's back with something warm and milky in a fucking glass for £3.50. Moved my tea set box. So cold here, so cold. Oh, shut up, my head's bursting. Night time, all the times. Shut up. Please don't talk to me. Dark, no. Excuse me, I've got something to do. Here's the money, keep the change. It doesn't matter. Take up my box. Tinkle, tinkle. Go. Between there and the police station, I dithered. Maybe I could just get on a boat or a plane. No. End up like her, adrift on some wrong latitude, where the weather will never be my second nature. My passport's at home. Oh no, I can't go there. Now stop this before it goes way too far! Hello, police? Yes. I'm sorry, I'm a bit hoarse. There's a man tied up at my flat. Will you take the keys and undo him? Whatever. I don't know, he broke in somehow, it doesn't matter. Last night, no, this morning, about 4, I woke up to the sound of breaking crockery. Close by, right in my ear. My tea set. No, I have it here, it's alright, I'll glue it later as long as it's mine. No, he didn't touch me. He might have been going to, or maybe he was just on a scout around. You see, someone I know knew had something happened to them last year. A break-in, rape. An elderly woman, now dead. And some way I was sure this was him. No, of course it wasn't. How could it have been? Just at that moment, that's what I'm saying. I thought, will you listen? Can I have a drink or something? Water? Anything will do. I admit I went fairly ballistic. A mixture of anger and revenge. The joy of it is, my voice didn't leave me. Oh no, he's still alive. Well, he was when I left him, but he'll never do what he did to Mrs. A again, let's say, and leave it at that. I will sit down, if you don't mind. Oh, a coffee, please, would be lovely. I'm exhausted. Not very fit, I suppose, must be that. And Mrs. A, she was... Do you mind if I borrow some of this glue? Would it be strong enough to fix these cups? Look. Look at this one. I broke it before I even owned it. Look at the bottom. You see? It says made in Hyde. The gas of it is, that was the only cup it was written on, and I lost the sea. Made in Hyde. Just one sugar, please. I don't normally, but I'm whacked.